Hi. Good morning, everybody. I just got the little thumbs up that we're about to get going. So um, I want to do quick, um, a quick sort of note before I start. We have about 45 minutes. Q&A is included in that. I have quite a lot of content because what I want to talk about is how to do games business. I'm going to try to touch as much of that as possible. So I'm going to go relatively fast. I understand there's probably some sort of recording. If anything goes too fast, find me after the talk, ask me questions in the Q&A, whatever works for you. But we're going to go pretty rapid tempo, okay? Cool. So, my name is Rami Ismail. I'm formerly one half Dutch Independent Studio of Limburg, made press kit, ran game development, blah, blah, whatever. This talk's called Pulling Together a Business Case, but I like to, that was actually not my title, but an event came up with that title, not this event, actually. I prefer to call it How to Fund a Dream in 100 Simple Slides. As a disclaimer, this is a talk by a person, which means it's biased and an opinion. So, if you strongly disagree with me, please do the other thing, and then when you are wildly successful and rich in a few years' time, come tell me about how I was wrong. Okay? Because I would like to know how to get all those things too. For context, I'm an indie dev. I've been for 12 to 15 years now. In 2008, 2010, when I kind of started, it's good to know that we were very anti-publisher. In fact, that was kind of our whole shtick, is like, there were the published games, screw those. And then there were the beacon, the bastion of creativity, which was our stuff. At first we were very anti-publisher, specifically because they pulled what I still think is the greatest trick that ever was devised in the games industry, which is you didn't need a publisher until there were publishers. So they kind of created their own market. Like at first you just competed against each other with marketing, and then you were competing with other indies who also were terrible at marketing. And then suddenly there were publishers and they were good at marketing. So now you needed publishers to compete with their marketing. So that's clever. That said, over the years, I've come to kind of, they're kind of adorable. They have some benefits. They can give you things like funding for games that are a little risky. You don't have to make like 11 small Flash games to make enough money to make your dream game. That's nice. They allow you to focus more on your development instead of all the business side of things. So, you know, I'm not gonna, this is not an anti-publisher talk. I actually think they're quite valuable, but it might give you a bit of context of where this talk is coming from, okay? So I'm going to go over 10 things of how to fund a dream. It's these 10 things. Wow, the contrast on that is zero. So I'm going to go over one thing for this talk. I'll help you read, because shit. All right. Entrepreneurship, risk, opportunities, value, thinking from funding, defining needs, making strengths from weaknesses, the pitch, reaching out, negotiations, the contract, and development. That's why I'm going to go fast. So let's start with entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is very easily defined as taking on financial risks in the hope of profit. Now, I know we're game developers, but if you're an independent developer, you're going to have to accept that first and foremost, you're an entrepreneur that makes video games. To be a good entrepreneur, I would say the first thing you need to set is a goal. And I always believe there's three types of goals. You've got your short-term goals, your medium-term goals, and your long-term goals. Your short-term goals are pretty immediate. What am I going to do now? My long-term goals are 5 to 10 years into the future. Your medium-term goals are absolutely useless in this industry because we don't know what's going to happen in the next year. So let me simplify this. If you're an indie starting out now, you've not shipped a commercial game, let me simplify it by telling you what I believe your first immediate goal should be. It's really simple. It is make a game, ship it without taking a loss. Because here's the biggest challenge you have is that just nobody believes you can make a video game because you've not done it. You've not shipped it. So your biggest problem for your business and reputation is just you haven't shipped the games. So if you can be back at this exact same spot in 2 years' time with a shipped game, with the exact same amount of money, with the exact same team, I would count that an absolute win. Because now you do have that reputation. Now, obviously, if you can have more money or a bigger team or it was an amazing hit, yeah, all the better, cool. But the goal is to ship a game. After you complete that goal, I would say you shift to a different goal, which is you continue to make games in plural. At that point, you're a business. An important part about business is no matter what your other goals are, the only way to achieve those goals is if your business continues to exist. Otherwise, you can't continue. So at that point, I want you to stop thinking about shipping a game. I want you to start thinking about, okay, this game that we're shipping, how does that play into our larger goals of continuing the company, of reaching a larger audience, et cetera, et cetera. So your goal is to make a game. You're going to do that by working with game developers, game artists, game designers, other game specialists in game technology, the games press, and games media. So what we're going to do is we are going to sell a business case. So not a video game. And the reason why is because there's really only two ways of doing business. It's very simple. It basically comes down to a preference of maximizing opportunity or minimizing risk. Those are the only two ways to do business. Every business strategy breaks down to one or the other. If you're maximizing opportunity, you're pushing, without caring too much about the risk, to maximize your opportunity. In a negotiation, that might look like you only have one person that you're negotiating with. They say 250,000, you go like 400. And if they then say like, yeah, no, well, you get zero. But if they say, yeah, you get $400,000. That's trying to maximize for opportunity. Minimizing for risk means somebody comes in for 250,000, you can do the game for 250,000. So you say, okay, they don't even try to negotiate. That's minimizing your risk. Every business strategy at its core breaks down to a preference for one over the other. I'm not saying that the people maximizing opportunity are just like spreading money everywhere, hoping that money comes back. They're still trying to minimize risk, but they're prioritizing maximizing opportunity. So if you're going to start in this industry, please aim to minimize risk. Because the truth is, most indie studios that start don't make it past 3 to 5 years. Most of them don't even make it past 1. So, and that's extra sad because 1 is not even enough time to make a video game. But they don't ever get past their pitch. So they never get their game funded, they never get started, end of story. So we're going to aim to minimize risk because our goal is just to ship. Not to get rich, not to get famous, not to get anything, just ship a game. So how are we going to do that? Well, this is where the publishers come in, because what we're going to do is we're going to take that risk, and we're just going to kick it at a publisher. And then they can deal with that. We call it funding, the process of moving risk to somebody else. But I want to be very specific about something. Funding can mean different things that don't involve moving risk out. You can fund your game by taking a mortgage if you know nobody owns a home if you're an independent developer. You can take a loan. You can take a loan. But the risk stays on your side, right? So when we're talking about funding, I'm talking about moving the risk from you to somebody else. And specifically to somebody who is more enabled to take on that risk than you are. But there's one problem. The game doesn't exist yet. Which is why we're going to be selling a promise. This promise is the business case, and the value of a business case is speculative. As in, it has no real value unless somebody pays something for it. At that point, it has that specific value. So if you can convince somebody to pay you $1 for a promise, your promise is worth $1. If you convince them to pay 20 million, your promise is worth 20 million. It's kind of nonsensical because money is kind of nonsensical, but this is kind of important to know. So how do you select the good game? How do you select the game to make? How do you select which game is at the heart of your business case? Well, for this one, I have a very simple answer. It's forget business. This is the part where you dream. It's the part where you don't think of budgets, you don't think of timeline. Dream up the game that you think should exist. That's the game that you think would be remarkable. That's the game you should make. And the reason I say that is because if you're in this talk, you're likely a creative. You likely don't have access to the data, you don't have access to the capacity, you don't have access to the resources to play the market. When I come across indies that say like, oh, roguelikes are very popular, yeah, now, by the time you're done with that, everybody's gonna be, oh, not a roguelike. So don't try to business, dream, and we'll figure out how to do the business from there. Okay? Not the other way around. Don't start with, oh, we're 2 people, we have about a year and a half, let's think about how to do what we can do with that time. No, dream the game. What is the dream? You got that dream? Then we go prototype. And when I say prototype, this industry is awful at definition, so everybody has a different way of saying prototype. When I say prototype, I mean quick and dirty. I mean this code should be so bad that by the end, every programmer that sees it wants to burn it in person. with a flamethrower. That bad. I don't want you to ever want to touch that thing ever again, right? I want mock-ups. I don't want you to implement all your beautiful art. Make your prototype, take a screenshot, get your artist to draw over it. If you're the artist, draw over the screenshot. I don't want you to implement anything. I want you to go fast. Quick, dirty, test, iterate, rapid, right? We'll evaluate the idea, its viability later. For business purposes, this is not relevant yet. What's relevant right now is your game interesting? Is it fun? Do you like making it? Not do you like playing it? I don't like my own video game. Well, except Ridiculous Fishing was pretty good. But like all the other games, I'm like, they're too stressful. There's a lot of explosions happening. Like I'm good. But I enjoy making them. That's what you should be aiming for. Do I enjoy making this game? Because you're going to be stuck with this shit for 2 years. Okay, let's talk real quick about risk, opportunities, and value. Your risks are very simple. You don't have money, you have a small team with low experience, and your reputation is non-existent. That immediately makes very clear what your opportunity is, which is make more money, get more experience, and get a better reputation. So this is quite straightforward. Your value is directly related, which means that your value for yourself and for the audience is money. In your case, the more money you have, the more you can do. For your audience, the amount of money they give you should feel smaller than the amount of enjoyment they get out of it. Your team and experience is mostly relevant to your partners, to the publishers, to the platforms, to anybody who might be involved in getting your game out there. And your reputation is mostly relevant for the audience and for the teams that you're working with, right? Your own ability to continue is mostly related to money, which we'll see later is mostly related to your reputation. So, now that we've established where sort of the value is, let's think this exact same scheme from the publisher side, or from whoever might fund you. So let's talk about their risks. I don't give a shit. And neither should you. That's their business. Let them run their business. If they give you $5 million and you came to them with, I really like the poop emoji, and I think it should be an interactive thing, and they give you $5 million, that's absolutely risky to their business. Also, they might be filthy rich really soon. But it's none of your business. If they pay you the money, then you're good. Take it. Good. Their risks are things like loss of investment or a loss of reputation. On your side, the risk of working with a publisher is that you might feel uncertain, or you might be inexperienced with working with other teams. But their business works completely different from ours. Their opportunity is that they have money. They have money and structure. And the way publishers think about money for a human is kind of weird. We think of money like a human. They think of money like investors, which means that one of the weirdest things about game development is you'll walk into a supermarket, you'll look at a drink you want, you'll go, shit, that's expensive. And then you'll go home and you'll negotiate about why $1.5 million isn't enough for your video game. Because you're working in two completely separate worlds. The way publishers usually think, and this is very generalized, and every publisher has its own way, but the easiest way to think about this is if somebody invests $1 in you, or a pound, they'll want to make 3 times that. And it's very logical why they want it. If I give you $1 and I make back 3, it means I can give you another $1, which hopefully will turn into another 3. I can find somebody else that wants $1 and says they'll turn it into 3, and I can keep $1 to get that drink from the supermarket. If you turn it to hundreds of thousands of dollars, it becomes quite clear why that model works. So most investors will sort of hit 3x as their lowest goal, and then they'll go up from there depending on how risky the investment is. The opportunity, my God, there's a lot of opportunity to being a publisher. I'm still not sure if developer was the right path to take in this industry, but their opportunity is selling a game under a brand. Who knows what just the latest Devolver game. Who knows what the developer is? It's a Devolver game. I've checked. Devolver doesn't program video games. But their opportunity is attaching those games to their brand so that people think, a Devolver game. They grow their portfolio, and with that, their audience, and then they sell that audience back to us. They have reputational gain from aligning themselves with up-and-coming developers. And something people forget is publishers have really good connections throughout the industry. So if you have a game and you go to them and you say, this game is $200,000, the first thing a publisher will do is take that game, go to Game Pass and say, $250,000? And they've already been back their money. They have access to funding options you might not even know about. So there's a lot of opportunity on the publisher side. A lot of indies come to me and like, oh yeah, am I asking too much money? Am I not making the risk for them too big? Microsoft has 181,000 full-time employees. If a lunch costs $1, most debut games can be funded by Microsoft skipping 2 days of lunch. That's the risk. They don't care. Those numbers are not real. Like $181,000 to them is the equivalent of us walking into a store and going, I want a Coke. It's that fast. So publishers look at this business thing, if we're looking at it again from minimizing opportunity, minimizing risk, maximizing opportunity, they're aiming to maximize opportunity because they have the risk. They have the ability to do that. So what we're going to sell them is a promise that will maximize their opportunity, and within that, we're going to try and minimize their risk. There's a lot of competition for us. Every developer has a ton of competition when you're pitching, when you're trying to get funding. So we're going to need to try and minimize our risk relative to our competition. I hate the word competition in indie games, but when you communicate about your business, talking to funders is a continuous exercise in doing just that. We're going to emphasize the opportunities. We're going to de-risk our risks. And then think for a moment about the transaction. What do they offer that you need? They offer money, structure, services, reputation. What can you offer that they need? That's going to be a product, a game, something they can sell to make more money. I want to stop for 1 second at the biggest lie publishers have ever taught us. And I think this is a really important one, because this one is so ubiquitous that indies tell each other the same lie. That the very phrasing in our industry reflects this lie. The lie is that publishers fund video games. Publishers don't fund video games. Publishers buy publishing rights. You take that money and you fund your video game, right? Now that seems like a pedantic sort of difference, but it's not. Your budget, see, is connected to your needs. What you need to fund your game, to build your game. What your game is worth is completely unrelated to that. Say I am making a game with a team of 3. Each of us takes $50,000. Let's do dollars. $50,000 in salary each year. Going to be working on it for 1 year. And it's a game about little astronauts backstabbing each other on a spaceship. That's fair. $150K, do the development. Now that game is Among Us. 3 developers are going to work on this. It's a little space game about astronauts backstabbing each other on a spaceship. They're going to work on it for 1 year. Each of them take $50,000 revenue, salary. How much should they get from the publisher? Well, I can guarantee you that it's not $150,000. We're talking in the many, like tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions. Because the value of your game, and thus the value to the publisher, is independent of your budget needs. And I need a lot of indies to understand this difference a lot better. Because what publishers will do is they'll ask for your budget. And the reason they'll ask for your budget is because it's immediately clear what you need and what is margin. It's a way for them to lower the amount of money they're spending, just down to what you need to make the game. Now, they can usually do that because in the power structure we have, they have the money, and we need the money. But if you have a game that is interesting, you're not stuck to your budget. Your budget is not what you have to ask. You can go up. If the game is worth it, you can just go up. It's fine. But for ourselves, it's still important to define our needs. So we're going to define our needs, not for the publishers, but for us. So the needs are very simple. We need a team, time, budget. The team exists out of design, art, code, sound, production, marketing, QA, localization. Some of those are split between you. Most of the top one will be in your team. The middle part might be in both teams. QA localization is usually on the publisher side or the structural side of things. I'm missing 100,000 different things. I don't even think my job is in there. People can be multiple disciplines at once, blah, blah. We know all this part. Time, how much time you need, it's more than you think. Small indie games take 1.5 to 2 years. Big indie games, 2-3 years. Most of my consultancies start with you need more time. I don't know why we think we're good at scheduling things. If any of you have ever asked a programmer how long something is going to take, they're always going to say, well, either 2 hours or 6 weeks. And somehow we think we can come up with a normal timeline based on that. So there's really no way to know how much time things will cost when you don't even have the team to work on the game. So the only tip I have for time is that you just use something a little bit like this. This is the one I use. Everybody uses their own, but it goes prototype, vertical slice, production start, alpha, feature complete, beta, content complete, release candidate, launch. The basic version is the prototype. It's the quick and dirty thing that we burn. The vertical slice is the version where we implement some of the art and we make a single part of the game, a single challenge in the game that looks like it's ready to ship. It doesn't have to be ready to ship. It needs to look like it's ready to ship. Production start is where we've answered all the question marks. So we know how long each thing takes to make. And specifically, I like to know how long it takes to make the second one of each thing. Making a character, the first one, takes a long time because you have to establish what a character is. Making the second character uses that existing framework. That's how long it takes to make a new character. If I know that, I can extrapolate it into the future. Now I can make a timeline. Alpha, I call feature complete, which means there's at least one working example of everything in the game. When I say feature complete, I mean if there's an inventory in your game, the inventory needs to be able to take an item, you need to be able to use an item, you need to be able to discard an item. If that's all the inventory ever does, I just need one item to work in that. If your inventory has uniques, I need 2 items because you need to be able to switch between the 2 different items. That's it. I don't need more from you. Beta content complete is now everything is in there. That's usually a very long stretch. Your release candidate is the game is done, we're going to ship it. It goes to certification. And certification says that we have 1% of screen that we're using that we're not allowed to use. It comes back, shit, resubmit it, and then launches the version that we ship. This is generally a thing that most parties in the games industry understand. If you're doing a timeline, each of those steps needs a clear deliverable, and each of these steps needs a margin. The margin for me is usually, I try to add about 30% to what each milestone is, and then 3 months at the end of the project. And I'll tell you about why. It's because we suck at scheduling. Now we have a timeline. Timeline is great. We have an estimate timeline of how long we're going to take. Now, let's figure out the next step. What is our budget? Well, our budget is a comfortable salary for everybody on the team that you need. Not the team that you have now, everybody that you need on the project. You're going to multiply that by the amount of months you need. You're going to add 3 months to that number, and then you're going to multiply that with a margin of 30%. Then you're going to add your additional costs, and then you're going to add another 30% margin. Why do I add 3 months? How long does it take for Steam to pay you after your game ships? If anybody guesses 3 months, that's why it's 3 months. It's because you can ship your game and then not get money for months. Steam pays in 3 months. Publishers often pay at the end of a quarter. If that quarter just started after your first payment comes in, you might wait 6 months for your money. That's not a good place to be. So let's get those 3 months so we can keep the company rolling. Let's keep that 30% margin because their programmer said 2 days and it took 6 months, right? The budget range in the industry, they're ever-changing, but I usually tend to look at them like this. You've got 70K to 200K, 300K to 3 million, and 5 million. Between those numbers is space. Between 200 and 300 is space. I create that space because I call it the dead zone. If you're in those, you're screwed. Because those small publishers will look at that $250,000 budget and go, well, that's too big for us. And the medium-sized publishers will look at the 250K budget and go, well, that's too small for us. So if you are ever in that dead zone, just make it higher. Just make the number go up. It'll be better. And people go like, oh, but is that fair? Can I do that? Yeah, you can do that. Why would you not be able to do that? Ask them for money. If you remove the zeros, right? If you remove the same amount of zeros from each of these and think of it like you would. If somebody comes to you and says, you can have this really cool thing you really want for $20, and they go like, oh yeah, that might be interesting. And then they come back and they're like, actually, it's $30 now. You might go like, shit, but I really want it. So they're going to go like, well, screw you forever. Like, I'm out. Like, that's just not how it works. Right? If that's 2 to 3, you're still going to grab that drink even if it's $1 more expensive. But even though you can go up as much as you want, your budget has to be viable. Oh shit, I have so little time left. So, to make your budget viable, I'm going to teach you a real quick trick. Really quick trick. Find comparable games that made an approximate revenue of 70%, 130%, and 300% of your budget. I'm going to go real fast, but there's a blog post I did about this. You can find this online. Basically, do this. There's something called the box slider number. It's created by an indie called Mike's Box Slider because we have no way to figure out how much revenue a certain game made or how many units they sold. Mike started emailing other indies and got a number, found a ratio between the amount of reviews a game has and the amount of sales units. It's the only public way for us to know approximately how many units have been sold on Steam. So, find a game that had a revenue of 70% of your budget, 130%, and 300%. And then it's very simple. That 70% game, you need to look at it and go like, we're going to fuck them up. Your game needs to be easily better than that. If a consumer sees those two games, unless they have a really strong preference, you should be fairly certain that they will pick your game. The 130% game, even or better. 50-50 or better. Preferably better, but that. And the 300 game, you need to put those two games next to each other, and that your game next to the 300% game should feel like some people might still buy yours. The more the better, but up to a level. If it looks like you cannot beat that 70% game, your budget is too high. And if it looks like your game is easily better than the 300% game, your budget is too low. That's it. That's the full thing. Because what investors are looking for is not necessarily video games. Yes, publishers like video games. The people you work with at publishers love video games. Well, most of them. But their job is to make money and to make sure the company makes money. So that solves the budget. If these numbers check out, we're good. Let's keep moving. Services. You might need localization, QA, marketing, community management, release management. Always ask for those things from publishers. So, shit. Okay, well. Oh, wait, I started a quarter late. I started 15 minutes late. I have more time. Shit. Okay, now we know what we need, which is 15 more minutes. Our needs will generally overlap with our weaknesses. That's how business works. So we're going to start thinking about how we can communicate our needs in such a way that they don't sound like negatives. We're going to try and find ways to make them sound like opportunities. And to do that, I need you to understand one thing really well that I teach every single person I teach how to talk about their game, which is I don't give a shit about where your game is right now. I don't care whether it's a prototype, I don't know how it looks, I don't know whether the art is done, I don't know whether the story is done, I don't care. If I'm a publisher, the only thing I care is the dream. Because that's the part I'm going to be selling. I ain't going to be selling your prototype. I'm not going to be selling your work in progress art. I'm going to be selling the game at the end. So the only thing I want you to ever talk about is the game at the end, unless the publisher asks. And when the publisher asks, they ask for it for one simple reason. They want you to prove that you can make that game. And that's what the prototype was for. So, for any communication with any funding partner, we're only going to be talking ever about that final game when it is done. The dream needs to be realistic. You need to be able to back up how you're going to achieve that dream. The budget needs to fit. The timeline needs to fit. The budget needs to be viable. But nobody cares about where your game is now. Please stop talking about where your game is right now, please. From the publisher point of view, everything looks different. So I'm going to do rapid fire quiz and go real rapid. I'm going to read a question, and then I'm immediately going to say the answer, so don't spend too much time thinking about it. But while I talk, you have time to think about what you think the answer is. So let's go. Is a previous ship title that was good but performed very poorly, is that a positive or a negative for a publisher? It's a positive. And that might sound weird, but the truth is that if the game was good but it performed poorly, the problem was marketing. Now, what is a publisher really good at? So, you've just told them that they can add additional value to your game. Your game is good. And if they add the marketing, that might be the difference. Right? So that's good. You're communicating that weakness as a strength. The budget you're asking for is 150K, but after calculations, it turns out you're already spending 130K. It seems like you'll need additionally 30K. You're still negotiating. How do you make this budget work? You increase the budget by 40K. 30K plus that 30% margin. Always 30% margin. Always. Any money you talk about, at 30%. Publishers are listening to this too. They know we're doing it. We're not cheating. They will try to get the number down unless they think it's useful. We're just going to add it. And we're going to hold our ground on it. You have a team of highly capable developers. They've never shipped a title. How can you alleviate this risk? How do you make a publisher believe that you can do it when your team has never shipped a title? You hire somebody who has shipped a title, which makes your game more expensive. In fact, you have to add the entire salary of, say, a producer who has shipped a title to your budget. And now your budget might be 70K, 80K higher than it was before. And it is now a better pitch because it is more expensive, but you fix the risk. You can lower your budget by 30% by living more frugally and not paying yourself a salary, and that way offset for the 30% margin. You'll be a more affordable pitch. Is this a positive or a negative to a publisher? It's a negative. Oh, fuck. It's a negative. Because here's what publishers are looking for, certainty. If you burn out, and you're one of the few people on the project is done. It's over. That's it. So if you get sick and you need the money and you're not paying yourself a salary, who's going to pay for that? Not you. So you need a job, which means you're not developing the game. Anything that makes your project more stable is a positive. So ask for a comfortable salary. I always tell indies the same thing. Too high a budget, too high an ask, better than too low. Because if you come at me with your game, and I think the game is worth, I think you need 20K, and you come in with 30, I can say, how about 25? If you come in with 5, I can't go like, well, how about 15? I go to my boss and I'm like, oh, you know, they said 5. I told them to ask for 10K more. My boss is going to be like, what? Some publishers are nice and won't let you do that, but most publishers will just take your fucking. It happened to me. I once sold a game for 30K that was worth 250. Don't ask. So the trick in these questions is consistently the same. We're maximizing opportunity, minimizing the risk, right? The reality is the publisher just care less about money than you do because you need it more than they. They have more. They can invest across 3 games, 4 games, 5 games. They can make sure that your risky game doesn't impact their business too much. So if we've done all this, we have a business case. The business case means that we know our game, we know our needs, we've established the value, we've identified opportunities, we have turned weaknesses into strengths, and the business case goes very simple. Here's how our business case goes. Who saw what opportunity to make what? How can you as a publisher benefit, and what do we need to make it happen? That's a business case. So how do we validate this business case? This is a big question that I get asked a lot. We're going to test our business case the same way we test a prototype, which is we fucking pitch it. Somebody takes it, it's a good business case. If nobody takes it, it's not a good business case. The problem is that most developers go all the way here before they start pitching. And I say move the risk fast. This part of development should not be paid by you. It should be paid by somebody else, by a publisher. So the soonest moment you can pitch, where you have that business case, where you have that game, where you can prove that the game is fun and interesting, where you have the mock-ups, where you have the art, you pitch. And here's the thing that will happen if you're new. They will say, we need a demo. And a lot of developers go like, well, why don't we make the demo? Because it takes 6 fucking months to make a demo. If you pitch it to everybody and it's your amazing game about fishing with machine guns, and people just go like, fishing is not really the thing in 2022. Then why the fuck would you spend 6 months making a demo if the publisher could already tell you that they're not going to be interested in your game? So don't make the demo unless somebody wants the demo. Sometimes games get pitched and published without a demo. Sometimes people work on a demo for 2.5 years and then nobody cares. So try and move that risk away as fast as possible. Same thing as design. We're going to iterate. Do the pitch. Nobody likes it. What's wrong? Can we fix it? So the pitch. Pitch is not very different. We're going to communicate the business case. We're going to emphasize our opportunities. We're going to de-risk our risk. There's a million good talks about pitching. I'm not going to talk too much about them. Important thing to remember, the publisher is not the audience. The games is just a means to an end. They love games. I swear to God, most people at publishers love games. They're not some sort of evil money like sucking. Well, some of them are, but most of them are not an evil money sucking corporation. But the business case is the goal here. That's their goal, that's your goal. They'll tell you otherwise, it isn't true. It might be true for the person, for the company, it can't be because that's not how their business works. If they cared about nice games, all those cute little itch.io experiments would be funded. And they're not because a lot of them won't make money. That's just how that works. So the pitch, luckily we've already expressed this, it is who, so which opportunity to make what, how can you benefit, and what do we need? You'll find lots of talks that say that you should start with your budget. I say you should end with your budget. And the reason for that is very simple. If I start and I tell you this game is $1 million, and then give you 25 slides about what the game is, every slide you see, you're going to evaluate against the idea that this is $1 million game. And if there's even one thing that doesn't look like $1 million game, you're going to note it. If I tell you about the entire game, and at the end of the thing you're thinking, this might be $1 million game, and then I go to my slide and it's $1 million game, we're done. We're good. The people on the other side of this are still people. They still think like people. They still act like people. And in general, if you try to sell somebody something, you don't start with the price. You start with why they want it. So, I think a pitch is a story, and it's this story. It goes, who, so which opportunity to make what, how can you benefit, and what do we need? Who, very simple, credibility. Why should I listen to you? If you're just starting out, anything that you've worked on that might be relevant to the game you're making, good. Any outreach that you've done, any visibility that you might have, good. Important, though, is that you think about what your team is going to be. Not just you, but your team. Remember that producer that we added earlier on to de-risk? It's not the team you have right now. We're selling the dream. When this game gets funded, what is your team? You can talk to people that you can't afford right now to work with. Ask them if they'd be interested to work with you if your game gets funded, and then add them to the pitch as if they're going to be working on the game, because when you get funded, they will be. We're selling the dream, not the current. So, who saw which opportunity? This is where I explain the dream. Why are you making this? And this normally flows so naturally from who you are. Because we're not making a game because we're playing the market, we're making a game that we believe should exist. So it will flow. That part will be the easiest part of your pitch. How to go from who to which opportunity. Now we get to make what? The game when you're done. Do not pitch. I'm going to say it again. Don't do it. Don't pitch where you are now. Pitch where you're going to go. You can use it to the prototype if you need to de-risk. But for first-time teams, it won't make much of a difference. Publishers will still ask for a demo. In this case, that is good. If they ask for a demo, they're interested enough to ask for a demo, right? Then comes, how can you benefit? If everything went okay, we did that comparison. We did the 70%, 130%, 300% thing. So you can explain relatively clearly that you believe they will at least break even. 130%, 100% to earn back what they invested, 30% because that's the Steam cut. 130% is break even. Anything above that is profit. So if you can say pretty clearly that you're going to be between 130 and 300%, you've proven, as much as you can for a speculative deal, that there is a market opportunity. They will do that same analysis. They have their own way of doing that. There's entire spreadsheets. There's things that they fill in and then 700 numbers drop out. And some publishers have spreadsheets where they do a thing and it just says okay or not okay. And that's the answer you get. And then finally, what do we need? And usually you explain the services you need, marketing, localization, QA, you explain the timeline, be clear about what you are, where you are right now. If it went well, at this point in the pitch, the publisher has a number in their mind. They might be thinking 750K, they might be thinking 500K, they might be thinking $1 million. Here's the trick. If you are under the number they're thinking, but not too far, you're done. You did a good pitch. Because at that point, they're going to want to know more. That's the game. That's the pitch. It's not more complicated than that. I hear entire talks about philosophy. Love philosophy. Pitch is very simple. If you can make the number at the end of the presentation in their head be a number that is above what you need or what you're going to be asking, you've done a good pitch. So my tricks for pitching, real quick, learn to pitch like a human. Too many indies practice their pitch in front of the mirror as a speech. I can tell when something is a speech. It doesn't make me trust you more. What makes me trust you more is if you talk like a human. There's 3 ways of pitching your game: objective, subjective, and financial. Financial is not going to be relevant. The financial pitch is going like, hi, we made Among Us. We're filthy rich. If you give us $25 million, you can publish our merch figures. They probably ask for more. Um, that's financial pitch. Very clear financial benefit to both parties. It's just one party needs some money to make the other thing happen. Also, Among Us is not going to ask somebody to publish them. They're just going to make them themselves. Anyway, objective. Usually for games that are very mechanical. This is why it's interesting. Here's how it works. This is what it does. And then the one that should be used most frequently, subjective. A game about a feeling. And what you're pitching is that feeling. What is the user going to be feeling? How are we going to make that happen? I tried to pick one. For every game I do, I try to pick a tone. Objective, subjective, financial, and just fucking stick to it. Because nothing is more confusing than somebody going like, oh yeah, so it's a game about love. Anyway, it's a platformer where you shoot hearts at enemies that then explode. And it's like, what just happened? Just stick to the love story. That's good. Do that. It's great. I want more games about love. And also, when you do objective, please talk about meaningful stuff. I don't care about that you have 12 characters. I just really don't. Because I don't know what the fuck that... If I tell you this game has 10 characters, but that game has 12 characters, which game are you going to buy? Neither, because both of those pitches are shit. I don't care. What does that mean, character? Okay, so we've got our pitch. We're ready. How do we pitch and to who do we pitch? I will tell you to who to pitch. You pitch to fucking everybody. Every single publisher that publishes on your platform. And the way you do that is by reaching Alan's game dev resources sheet online. It's a big free spreadsheet made by a developer named Alan Dang. It is full of every publisher and their contact information. If that's the only valuable thing you take from this talk, this was a successful talk. Find that list, filter by the platforms you're publishing on, and email everybody. Do not pick favorites. So many indies I talk to are like, oh yeah, we're going to pitch to these 5 developers because we love them. I don't know whether they love you yet. So why would you limit yourself to that, wait for them to say no, and then go like, oh, okay, well, guess we'll try the other ones. Just email all of them. When you get responses, take the list of publishers who responded, and then pick your favorites. Not the other way around. You don't write your wish list for Santa before you know whether Santa's real. I guess there's some unresolved pain there. Try to be brief. Publishers get a lot of pitches. Keep it short. Keep it to the point. Don't send them an email that says like, "Hi, we have a game. If you're interested, please email us. We'll send you the pitch." No, nobody's going to answer you. Just send the fucking pitch. Include the documents. Make sure your email is to the point. All right. How many seconds do I have? Like 20? 3 minutes. Oh, fuck. Okay. Negotiations. You send out your pitch. Some of them have responded. Let me teach you real quick how to do negotiations. Remember that it's not just about money. There's plenty of things that publishers can do beyond money. It's important that you're honest about what you need, what your risks are, what your opportunities are. Do not be scared to ask for what you need. If you need something, ask it. If they ask for something you can't give them, tell them. If they need you to sign a $1.5 million insurance because your game might hack the Pentagon or something, tell them no, right? Most negotiations are there because there can be conversation about things. And consider that you're going to be working with this publisher if you work with them for a long time. So prioritize options that give you a good feeling. If you talk to a publisher and they consistently make you feel like shit, don't work with them. The amount of calls I have where I'm trying to get an indie out of a bad contract or out of a situation that went bad, it's just too much. There's too many situations where publishers, indies, little options, they went with the one that didn't feel great but offered a little bit more. Take the one that offers a little bit less but feels a little better to work with. Honesty is key. De-risk, optimize opportunity, and take your time. Involve a lawyer, consult with consultants, mentors, whatever you do. And it's important that you, again, are honest with them. And keep pitching. Publishers will make you feel like when you pitch to them and they're interested in talking that you shouldn't pitch to anybody else anymore. You keep pitching until anybody puts that signature on that contract. The reason you do that is because the publisher didn't stop taking pitches when they got yours. It's business. Keep going until it's signed. Oh, shit, there goes my slide. Okay. My backstop method, the method I teach people to negotiate, very simple. The highest offer you get is the one you say, oh, we're really excited to work with you. Let's talk about it a little. You don't negotiate. Leave it right where it is. The other ones that are under that, talk to them and tell them, I have a better offer. So if you can beat this, or if you can go up, we can continue to negotiate. Otherwise, we just have to chase that opportunity. Time's up. All right. Engage, do not push their offer, negotiate with everybody else. If somebody goes over that, they're the new backstop. Talk to them, keep them warm. Try to get the other ones up. Don't overdo it. If you're down to 2 or 3 options, pick the best one, take that. After they sign, inform the others. Might feel mean, it's just business. Oh, God. Can I get 2 more minutes? 2. All right. Real quick about money. Recoup. Recoup, really important word. It means break even. It's usually what the publisher needs to earn back their investment in the game plus the amount of money they spend on other services. Usually you get a percentage before recoup and a percentage after recoup. People ask me how much should we get before recoup. I don't give a shit. If it's 0%, I don't give a shit, because here's the truth. Most games will not fully recoup. That's how it is. Publishers will try to select games that will recoup. Your pre-recoup number is a percentage of a small amount of money in the relative scale of business. So if that number is 0, I don't give a shit. Focus on the upfront. Make sure you have enough margin to make your game, ship it, and then have more time to get to your next pitch. That post-recoup number is more important. If you make a hit game, then get a percentage after it earns back. That pre-recoup number is usually 10% of $100,000 is $10,000. It's really not worth negotiating over that too much. If you can make a game, get paid for development, keep a margin, then we are done with our goal. That's it. We're trying to ship. We're trying to get back with the same amount of money. So we're not caring too much about anything else at this point. The contract, really quickly, keep your IP. If you see the words right of first refusal, run the fuck out or tell them, no, I want right of first negotiation. Basically means that you have to offer them a deal, and you can't offer anybody else a deal until they say no. Right of first refusal, not good. Do not sign it. Watch what they're recouping and make sure that they're not spending money on themselves that you then have to pay back. Some companies have internal localization teams, some publishers have that, and they will tell you the cost for that you have to recoup. That's bullshit, because they also set the prices. Do not allow them to do that. Check your responsibility, check their responsibility. Watch your timelines, payments, acceptance of milestones. When do they accept a milestone? What does that mean for you if they're late? Does your milestone then move? Or can they be 3 months late saying, oh yeah, this milestone is fine while you're waiting, and then tell you you're late for your next one? Make sure that that's clear. Also check for termination clauses. Can I get out of this contract if things go bad? Can they get out of that contract, and under what rules? What do I get when they back out? Talk to your lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. You're not a lawyer. A lot of wording, super cryptic, super legal. Please get a lawyer. If you're trying to sign a $500,000 contract, please don't skip that $2,500 investment. And then finally, we get to the hard game, because now you're making a video game, but you're doing it using someone else's money. So that's cool. They're going to earn money off of you, so you don't have to feel bad about that. Keep in mind, pitching from pitch to signing takes 6 to 12 months. Make sure you're ready with a new pitch a few months before you're done with your game, and then go focus on making more games. Thanks so much. I don't think we have time for Q&A. So if anybody have questions, I'll be on the outside of that room to take some of your questions. Thanks so much for your time, and sorry for going a little late.